Well, in 2013, I published a book called The Covenants of the Prophet Muhammad with the Christians of the World. I essentially rediscovered some long-lost letters that the Prophet Muhammad had sent to the Christian leaders of his time, in which he gave them a long list of protections, and he commanded his followers to respect those covenants until the end of times, until the Day of Judgment. These protections include, freedom of religion, that the Muslims should protect churches and monasteries and, priests and monks and so on. So it's very long, it's very detailed. It's pretty much like looking at a Bill of Rights or a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or a Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So it was very advanced for that period. So this book inspired a movement called the Covenants Initiative, in which we were calling upon Muslims to abide by these covenants that the Prophet had concluded. We were very successful in that regard. Hundreds and hundreds of Muslim scholars endorsed it, and of course when a Muslim scholar backs something, it implies that his community will also back it. It's information that they share with their congregation. We had a great deal of political support. Sheikh Nahyan from the United Arab Emirates publicly backed our initiative, and he said that this book should be in every school and library in the West. The Grand Muftis from the Middle East backed it. We received the blessings of Pope Francis, Patriarch Theophilos III, Patriarch Bartholomew, and other religious leaders. So it was very, very well received by Christian leaders and Muslim leaders, and also our Jewish partners. Now, the Covenants Initiative was aimed primarily at the Muslim community, and we were reaching out to the Christians, to show them that we were doing our best in order to protect them, because they're being persecuted and essentially, exterminated from the Middle East. We approached these Christian leaders and we said, how can we help? Okay, what else can we do? And a bishop, Francis Calabat, from the Chaldean from the Chaldean Catholic Church, he's based out of Detroit, he asked us if we could create a genocide initiative, if we could use our network in order to pressure governments, world leaders, politicians, human rights organizations, to declare the atrocities being committed by ISIS and similar groups as acts of genocide, as crimes against humanity. And when you do so, that would be a great accomplishment in and of itself. It would trigger a series of consequences, okay, politically, economically, and so on. It would ensure that eventually, justice would be served. So the Genocide Initiative, yes, that pretty much summarizes it there. It's being spearheaded by a group of intellectuals, university professors, Muslim scholars. We have Christian partners, Jewish partners as well. So if the Covenants Initiative was focused on Muslims, this is open to everyone. People of faith and people without faith, just human beings as a whole. So we've been working with our attorneys and with all of our leaders to prepare this declaration, this statement, essentially a petition that we will upload shortly to change.org. We would like to get 100,000 signatures at the very least. If we can get 1 million, by all means. But after we have, a sufficient amount of signatures, we would start sending this out to different political leaders throughout the world, and to put some pressure on these people to act. Many people feel helpless, they feel hopeless, they shrug their shoulders. What can we do? There's nothing we can do, right? They don't even want to hear about it. There's no point of even talking about it. But as we sit, people are being targeted for extermination. There's a process of de-Christianization taking place in Iraq, taking place in Syria. And this is very serious because these are the oldest Christian communities in the world. And they're being exterminated. I think 70% of the Christians of Iraq have fled their country. Millions of Syrians, of course, including Christians, have been expelled and are living in refugee camps. The Shiite Muslims are being exterminated. The traditional Sunnis as well, the Sufis, Yazidis, different ethnic and religious groups. So we are trying to do something. And there's a saying by the Prophet Muhammad that the ink of a scholar is more precious than the blood of a martyr. And so at the very least, we could spread our ink. I would say it's worse in this sense. The Nazis tried to hide their crimes. They tried to hide their atrocities. They did not speak openly about the final solution. And historians have tried, desperately to find some citations, some quotes, some documents from Hitler and from high-ranking people in the Nazi Party incriminating them for these atrocities. We know the acts, but where are the orders? Where did they say this? They tried to cover it up and so on. But of course, we've been able to back that up based on evidence and so on, physical evidence and testimonies and so on. But what's different with ISIS is that they make no secret of their plans. Okay, they make it explicitly clear that they wish to exterminate the Christians. They say that the Shia Muslims are worse than infidels, and that their blood is halal, or it is legal to shed their blood. And so people like ISIS, when they enter villages, if they enter into a Christian village, they will exterminate the population. They've committed massacres in Shiite villages. In some larger cities, they've exterminated systematically the entire Shiite population. The atrocities they've committed against the Yazidis are very well documented. They massacre the men, they enslave the women, they turn them into sex slaves. So pretty much anyone who disagrees with their ideology, with their mode of thinking, is someone whose blood, in their eyes, is legitimate to shed. So they are committing genocide. There is no question about it. When you try to exterminate a specific group, a religious group, an ethnic group, this is genocide. Now, perhaps quantitatively, it is not the same as what happened in Europe or in Germany, but qualitatively, it is exactly the same thing. They make no secret about it. They film their atrocities when they drown people, burn people alive, crucify people. They're very proud of it. They film these atrocities, they upload it to the internet, so there is no secret, okay? People say, oh, where's the proof, where's the proof? There's an overwhelming amount of evidence, okay? So we know they're committing genocide, and we believe that, world leaders should do something about it. They should act. Unfortunately, so far, there hasn't been a clear will to do so. Well, these people are not currently in power. They may control perhaps 50% of Syrian territory. It can be close to half of Iraq. A huge section of Iraq is under their control. But they are not truly a state, and they're certainly not Islamic. The only thing Islamic about them is their name. But were these people to gain political power, then you would see a genocide, because they would have the means in order to accomplish it. So, I mean, now they're busy, they're fighting the Syrian government most of the time, they're fighting other rebel groups, but were they able to concentrate their efforts on atrocities? That's exactly what they would do. And so you would see the end of Christianity in the Middle East, you would see a genocide of Shiite Muslims, you would see the extermination of the Yazidis, and they've also been targeting Sunni Muslims. Quite often in the media they describe these people as Sunni Muslims, but they have destroyed hundreds and hundreds of Sunni mosques. They go to the mosques and they hang the imams. So these people are not Sunni Muslims. They belong to a perverted, they adhere to a perverted interpretation of Islam that is only 200 years old, which is known as Wahhabism. Which has been rejected by the consensus of Muslim scholars over the past centuries. People need to realize that they can do something, and it could be something very simple. I mean, I've disseminated a list of how you can help the Covenants Initiative, and the same thing would apply for the Genocide Initiative. Many things people can do. For example, once we upload this petition, you can sign it. Okay? People spend much of their time on the internet, on their iPad, on their phone. They can simply go to change.org. They can put their signature and they can click. And so, at least they've expressed opposition. So, if the day comes and their children ask them, so what did you do when they wiped out all the Christians and all the Shias and the Kurds and the Yazidis in Iraq and in Syria? And, well, you're going to shrug your shoulders? You'll say, son, or, my daughter, I did everything that I could, and all that I could do was to raise my voice against this injustice, and I signed this petition, and we tried to pressure our government to act, and God forbid if they didn't act, but we will see. So yes, we can do things. You just share our petition. You could share our videos. I've given many lectures on this topic and related topics. Just a couple of clicks by a few people, and then dozens of people click it. It's hundreds, it's thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Soon it's millions. Just a little video can become viral in no time. So we're calling for a global mobilization of conscience in order to protect the persecuted Christians of the Middle East, and also the Shia Muslims and the Kurds and the Yazidis and other minorities that have been targeted for genocide. I have many roles in life. I'm a father, I'm a professor, I'm an academic, and apparently now I'm an activist. So all of it ties together. It just boils down that I'm a human being who cares for other human beings. And yes, we're talking about human life here. And human life is sacred. I mean, if you don't believe that life is sacred, I don't think you deserve to live. So yes, I think we should all unite as human beings in order to save human lives. Yes, people could donate to this cause. I mean, we have created a non-profit, which is the Covenants of the Prophet Foundation. They can make donations to that foundation. But quite often what people do is they donate their time. I mean, you speak about lawyers. We have attorneys who work for us. They're human rights lawyers. They're lawyers who deal with like refugee issues. They're immigration lawyers. These people don't charge us any money. They work with us. They're our partners. We have academics, university professors. I mean, we have people, who are film directors, and they will make videos for us. They do this to help the cause. We have people who design websites for us, who take care of our social media pages. We have people in charge of corresponding with people and networking. So, we have never turned anyone away. Everyone has some type of skill, right, that they can use in order to help us. But they can reach us through covenantsoftheprophet.com, which is one of our websites, also johnandrewmorrow.com. There's Covenants of the Prophet Muhammad Facebook page. I have two Facebook pages, Dr. John Andrew Morrow, and the other one is just John Andrew Morrow. We're going to have a website shortly. It should be launched by Monday, which will be it'll be genocideinitiative.com. With also a whole bunch of social media sites. We have a YouTube site, and I've traveled all over the world to talk about this: the United States, Canada, many countries in Europe, the Middle East. My lectures are there. Share them with people. Yes, I mean, ISIS, what they would like to do is like completely separate Muslims from Christians. The thing is, Muslims and Christians and Jewish people lived side by side in the Middle East for 1,400 years. There may have been conflicts here or there occasionally, but in general, they got along well. And if you speak to the Christians in the Middle East, they understand this. Like when we approach them and tell them, listen, the ISIS, what they're doing is not Islam. Okay, a lot of people in the United States and stuff, they equate ISIS with Islam, Islam with ISIS. This is true Islam, this is the Sharia. No. Go ask, the Christians from the Middle East, and they say, these people are not our neighbors. We don't know these people. By the way, most of them don't even speak Arabic. A lot of these people are mercenaries. They're coming from England, they're coming from France, they're coming from Chechnya, they're coming from Black Africa. Okay, who are these people? These are not our neighbors who are doing this. So yes, we are trying to build bridges, right, between Muslims and Christians. The fact of the matter is that the Middle East is predominantly Muslim and has been predominantly Muslim for over 1,000 years, and yet there are millions and millions and millions of Christians in Egypt and Syria and Lebanon. So if Islam truly taught that we must exterminate the infidel, there would be no Christians in the Middle East. But the fact that there are millions and millions of these Christians proves the contrary, that actually they did protect them. But unfortunately, we have this deviant heretical group that is, hell-bent on exterminating these people. They think they claim to be acting for Islam, but everything they do violates the teachings of the Quran, the Sunnah, the Sharia, and these covenants of the Prophet. Not only are they ignoring these covenants, they're violating them blatantly. Right? The Prophet said, protect churches, protect monasteries. If they fall into disrepair, fix them, take care of them. And these people go around destroying churches. People say, well, ISIS, they're Muslims. How can they be Muslims if they've destroyed hundreds and hundreds of mosques? Okay? I mean, are they at war against their own religion? No, absolutely not. They have broken away from the main body of Muslims and from the community. The Genocide Initiative. We, the undersigned, call upon all political players, beyond all questions of political affiliation, and in the true spirit of human solidarity and decency, to categorize the crimes being committed by ISIS and other Takfiri terrorists against Christians, Twelver Shiites, Ismailis, Alawis, Sufis, traditional Sunnis, and others as acts of religious, cultural, and ethnic genocide. Before ISIS, all religious denominations stand in the line of fire. Christians and Muslims know only too well the bitterness and despair of a life spent under the ominous flag of Takfirism, a perversion of Islam known as Wahhabism that only reared its hideous head 2 centuries ago. Evil has a new face, and it is Takfirism. Doing nothing while millions of lives are at risk is tantamount to murder. We owe it to our children to carry on this fight so as to prevent the shadow of our shameful inaction from falling on future generations. Before the threat of Wahhabi-inspired radicalism, the world can no longer afford to stand on the sidelines. The enemy needs to be engaged on all fronts. Ideologically, through the denunciation of its nefarious dogma. Religiously, through the coming together of people of all faiths. Politically, militarily, financially, everything conceivable must be done and no efforts should be spared. We demand that local, regional, and international powers act decisively to neutralize ISIS and other Takfiri terrorists by cutting off their legs from under them, systematically dismantling their networks, whether financial, political, or religious. While we remain committed to peace, local populations have the right to defend themselves, and we have a duty of care towards them. Therefore, concerted efforts in keeping with international and territorial sovereignty should be made to oppose this evil by all means necessary. We urge political and economic powers to freeze all bank accounts of ISIS and other Takfiri terrorists, to seize their assets, and to prosecute any and all who provide material support to genocidalist war criminals. We further urge these powers to do all they can to determine how the black market trade in oil, drugs, arms, art treasures, and enslaved human beings that ISIS and other Takfiri groups rely upon to fund their efforts can be interrupted and brought to a halt, and how anyone involved in any aspect of this trade as either seller or buyer can be prosecuted under existing laws. We challenge all international organizations, human rights groups, intelligence agencies, national security agencies, law enforcement agencies, and military forces to coordinate their efforts to locate, arrest, indict, try, and convict any and all parties responsible for supporting ISIS and other Takfiri terrorists in any form or fashion, including but not limited to financial, military, strategic, political, and ideological assistance. We call upon members of the legal profession to determine how the perpetrators of these crimes can be indicted under existing laws, including but not limited to those against criminal conspiracy, hate speech, and providing aid to the enemy in time of war. Finally, we demand that any and all parties who have supported ISIS and other Takfiri groups in any form or fashion be labeled as war criminals guilty of genocide.